Hey, everybody, this is Scott Harris with the NAPAICC Insider Podcast. And as promised, we delivered Steve Badger today. So we're excited and very happy to have him on our podcast today. And we're going to talk about who should adjust a property insurance claim. So for everybody here that doesn't know who Steve Badger is, I've already put out a lot of promotion and information, but I think it would be best for Steve Badger to introduce himself. So Steve, tell the audience who doesn't already know who you are a little bit about yourself, your background, and how we got here today.
Well, thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to be here. I'm an attorney in Dallas, obviously. I work for the Zelle law firm. We're the law firm, not the pay app. We had the name long before the Zelle pay app came along. And so I've been doing this for 35 years now. I've been with the same firm my entire career. I started 1 year out of law school. I worked for the Texas Supreme Court for a year as a judicial clerk and then joined Zelle, and I've been representing the commercial property insurance industry and to a smaller extent the residential property insurance industry for over 3 decades now. For the first 2 decades, I was a subrogation lawyer. Insurance companies would pay claims and then they would hire us to go get their money back, which is how the process works. And I really began in roofing subrogation. I started down in Miami after Hurricane Andrew, looking at roofs that shouldn't have blown off in Andrew, and I sued a lot of contractors and engineers. So I learned all about roofing and construction. And then over time, that practice over the last decade or now 14, 15 years has morphed into being the defense guy in the hail and weather world. So I represent most of the commercial insurance industry and a select number of regional and emerging technology residential insurers.
Tell me about what that subrogation looked like against roofing contractors and engineers, because I was a general contractor for many decades. I'm not going to exaggerate, about 2.5 decades. And I built houses from the ground up, from the foundation. So I understand structural integrity very well. And I'm familiar with how Hurricane Andrew really affected Florida. I mean, it absolutely changed the codes overnight, just about
Yeah.
with impact windows, better roofing, strapping systems, tying things together a lot tighter. So tell me what that looked like when you were subrogating against a roofing contractor back then when the codes weren't like they are today.
Yeah, I'll give you an example. It was the very first roof I walked down in Miami when I got there, and it was the Port of Miami. If you've ever had a cruise out of Miami, that's the what they call the customs shelters there that you go through. And we went out to see what had happened to the roof, and the mod bit membrane had all blown off. And we walked around looking at the mod bit membrane that was blown off, and on the back side of the membrane, I kept seeing these bears. And I said to the roofing engineer, "What's up with these bears on the back of the membrane?" And he started laughing and he said, "Badger, that's the burn off bear." So it was a torch applied mod bit membrane. And the contractor knew that when the bear was no longer visible, the membrane was hot enough to slap down and adhere.
Right.
Well, if we're walking around looking at a lot of bear, that obviously meant the contractor didn't fully adhere the membrane.
I
So
see.
that was an easy one. We got a
Okay.
$1 million subro recovery on that one. I could give you lots of examples. We
And,
had one in Dallas where the contractor covered up the overflow scuppers when he put on the new roof and forgot to come back and cut them open. And
Now,
we
now
had a
how
big
vicious, how,
rainstorm.
how vicious in the process were you? Because as a general contractor, I had to carry liability insurance. So that's where the subrel comes in. You're representing the carrier, and you're probably going after a guy like me who didn't do a job properly, and I have liability insurance. So you're going after that liability insurance for that subrogation process. You don't recover the full replacement cost value that the carrier paid out, do you, when you do that?
Yeah, not always. Under the law, we're entitled to whatever the depreciated market value is. Often, it kind of depends. We'd always argue for replacement cost, but also to your point, is we never chase contractors for their own money. We chased insurance.
Okay.
And once in a while, a contractor had to kick in a little something here or there. But if I found out the contractor had no insurance, how am I going to get a squeeze $1 million out of them? And
Right,
now I'm
right.
not telling your contractor viewers not to buy insurance.
No,
They
no, that's
should.
important. They have to buy
Yes.
insurance. Yeah.
They should. But for my sub-row purposes, there was never a reason to pursue a lawsuit against a contractor who didn't have insurance. Because if I got a $2 million judgment against him, he'd just declare bankruptcy and I'd never collect it. He'd go start a new company.
Right. And that happens a lot too, unfortunately. But that's a whole different discussion because there should
Yeah.
be things in place that prevent anybody from starting a business, running bankruptcy, and then just starting up with the same exact business model again. So let's talk to the policyholders real quick because a lot of people don't understand what an insurance claim actually is, right? So I'd love for you to tell our viewers who are not in the industry, what an insurance claim is, what triggers an insurance claim, when does an insurance claim actually happen for a policyholder and that relationship, if you don't mind.
Yeah, I'll try to make it as simple as possible. My insurance company clients provide coverage for physical loss or damage. Those are the key insuring words. And when an insured suffers physical loss or damage, then my client has an obligation to come forward and pay for that damage. Now, that's my client's obligation. Initially, though, once there is damage, the building owner or the insured's obligation is to timely report a claim, establish its claim, what the damage is, and then cooperate with us in our investigation. So once we have the claim presented by the insured, we're told generally what the claim is. My client's duty is to conduct a reasonable investigation to evaluate the existence of damage, the scope of damage, the cost to repair that damage, and finally, coverage for that damage. And then in the perfect world, we work cooperatively with the insured. The insured fulfills their burdens, we fulfill ours. We reach agreement as to what is a reasonable scope of damage and cost to repair consistent with the coverage provided, and we're done. And that's how it's supposed to work. Now you and I will spend 30 minutes of talking about all the reasons it doesn't work.
Well, no, we don't have to go down that. But, it's funny because we always hear in the industry pre-loss condition. The obligation is to bring us back to pre-loss condition, right? And the policy does have duties after loss in it, which, describes the policyholder's obligations to that claim once the claim is getting reported, right?
Mhm.
And a claim usually originates from the policyholder, not from the carrier side. So that would have to be something that would be initiated from the policyholder. They had to trigger an event, and during that triggering event, they decided, hey, I think I should call my carrier and let them know about what happened here, right? And I think that's a sticking point for a lot of policyholders. So this kind of leads into what are some of the biggest and most common mistakes that you're seeing on your side that policyholders are making in the very beginning of a claim? Because I think if we can identify some of that, it would lead into prevention of, alternative dispute measures, hiring public adjusters, contractors feeling the obligation to advocate for somebody. So let's just briefly talk about that real quick. What's some of the biggest mistakes that policyholders right now are making when they have a triggering event that would have a claim?
Yeah, I think there's three things I'll mention. Number one is they have to timely report the claim. Absolutely. If you've had a wind event or a hail event and you think there's any possibility of damage, report the claim. You're obligated under the policy to provide prompt notice of loss. Now, actually, a lot of policies actually have actual deadlines, like a 1 year provision or a 6 month provision. So, number one, no policyholder wants to end up in a situation where their claim is absolutely barred for failure to provide timely notice. So, that's number one. Number two is that they need to ensure that they preserve the condition of the property to give the insurance company an opportunity to come out and inspect the damage. And I understand often if you've got a water leak, your toilet's gushing water everywhere, you've got to take some remedial efforts to quickly mitigate the damage. But make sure you document conditions. Make sure that there's photographs and video and the carrier knows, hey, I had to do this, I had to do that. Very important. On the flip side, we get claims come in and the insured's already had a contractor out and they've torn out all the sheetrock, they've torn out the flooring. My clients are going to say, wait a minute, you have prejudiced my ability to conduct an investigation. So, number two, the issue really is make sure you give the carrier notice and an opportunity to inspect what you allege is damaged and draw its own conclusions. Yeah. And then number three, I think the mistake we're seeing is not fully documenting the loss. It is the insured's burden to prove a covered cause of loss during the policy period and establish the scope of damage and cost to repair. And we see a lot of insureds, sometimes represented by PAs, who, for whatever reason, don't feel they have to satisfy that burden. They say, oh, I'll let the insurance company measure. Well, that's fine. We will. We will conduct a reasonable investigation and come up with our measure. But it's a lot easier if you've properly measured the claim first, present to us what you believe it is, because once you do that, the carrier has to investigate all of that. We have to set reserves. A lot of things go into play if you fully and properly quantify your claim early in the process. I think those three things from an insurance perspective can solve a lot of the problems and disputes we see later down the road.
Yeah, I agree with you 100% on that. And I like to add that, policyholders, they don't understand the contracts they sign, generally speaking. I mean, let's just put the elephant in the room right there. They go to the agent presents three or four options for them if they're not a captured agent and they work for a bunch of insurance companies, and they generally will pick the least amount of premium with the least amount of deductible if they can, and they don't even look at the coverages that they're not going to be afforded if a certain event happens. So I think that the duties after loss is a very interesting section in the policy because it does put a lot of burden on the policy holder, and yet the policy was completely written in its entirety by the carrier. Right. So they know that policy inside and out. When I was a carrier adjuster, we only had a handful of policies that we worked because it was a multi-state, and we knew all those handful of policies, special provisions, and everything else. So I would say to homeowners that are watching this and listening to your advice, start to educate yourself in the policy before an event happens and start to learn what your obligations are. Listen to information like what we're trying to provide to you because it is very important. Steve's absolutely right. You do have a very serious burden under your conditions, duties after loss to actually have responsibility in the claim. So with that being said, let's get into the big question. Who can actually adjust a property insurance claim? And we kind of led into contractors through the EMS portion of the discussion. And they're usually the first people on the scene. And these are mitigation contractors. So we'll do a water loss scenario. Homeowner has a water loss. They probably call the plumber first to get the water turned off. And then they have to deal with all the water in the house. So they may call a mitigation company. And they may do these things prior to even calling the insurance company and making a claim. So when I say making a claim, homeowners, you are making a claim that something happened to your home under the policy, and you expect the policy, like the carrier, to actually fulfill that claim. You're making a claim. You're saying, hey, something happened. That's what a claim is. And then we have to investigate the claim on both sides. So really, really get into that. So when EMS shows up, and this is the most common thing, EMS shows up, they start to advise policyholders, I'm not there yet, you're not there yet, the adjuster's not there yet, the claim may not even been called in. EMS may show up and say, we got to set up a lot of stabilization equipment that can include air movers and dehumidifiers, that can include air scrubbers and things like that. And then a lot of times they make that recommendation. You should really call in a claim. You want us to help you do that. And then they want to look at the declarations page. They want to see if there's basic coverages for their services. And here's a trap right here, right? It's a homeowner insurance trap, right? And this is why my podcast kind of exists, right? So they don't know what to do. And they are allowing a contractor to give them advice in the direction of an insurance claim. So let's talk about contractors stepping the lines. What are you seeing out there?
Yeah, I try to keep my 1, 2, and 3 answers as to what the mistakes policyholders make positive as to what they could do. One of the biggest mistakes I see is policyholders getting lined up with not necessarily the best contractor too early in the process. There are reputable contractors out there who absolutely have the insured's interests paramount. I will never deny that. Not all contractors are bad. But unfortunately, we have a very large segment of the storm chasing or water mitigation contractor industries that are not so reputable and honest. And the big problem I see, well, there's two of them. Number one is contractors are coming in and getting insureds to sign contracts where even if the insurance company won't pay for the damage remediation work, the insured is on the hook. And it's a very common scenario, and we're seeing it all the time. And I'm having to help a lot of policyholders get out of these contracts just as a side gig that I do. And what's happening is that the water mitigation contractor comes in and says, all right, I'm setting all this up. I'm doing all this work. It's $48,000.
Right.
And the insurance company comes in and says, that's nuts. It's 24 grand max. And the contractor then turns to the homeowner and says, here's the contract you signed. You owe me the difference. And if
Right.
you don't pay me, I'm going to file a lien against your property and I'm going to sue you.
Correct.
And that is a problem. It's a growing problem. It's getting worse. That's issue number one, and we can drill down on that if you want. Number two is homeowners allowing contractors to take over their claim. Contractors cannot act as public adjusters or lawyers. They are there to fix damage and advise the insured as to the scope of damage and cost to repair from a construction viewpoint. And there are a lot of contractors out there who are advertising themselves as insurance claim specialists, or we will handle your claim for you, or they'll take an assignment of benefits. All of that should be a huge red flag to a homeowner. That's not who you want to work with, because those people are breaking the law when they are negotiating insurance claims on homeowners' behalfs. And that goes to the core of your question today, is that who should be adjusting insurance claims? The simplest answer is not contractors.
Correct. But they can assist in the adjustment process. No, I mean,
they can support. Let's say support.
That's perfect. Yeah.
I like support. And let's
I do
draw a
too.
distinction, because this has really become more clear lately as to how we're trying to delineate the lines. The
Right.
contractor can discuss with the insurance company the construction scope and the construction price.
Yeah.
They cannot discuss the claim scope and the claim price. So they can show up and say, hey, Mr. Adjuster, nice to meet you. Here is my estimate, or here is my scope of work that I did. Here's the price for that work. Do you have any questions? Nothing's wrong with that at all. That they can do.
Yeah. And I agree with that. When I was a general contractor, I did have a period where we ran 10 years working with insurance companies directly. And that was because we were fair, we were reasonable, and our focus was not really having anything to do with insurance at all. We were focused on, if it was a roof job, we wanted to get the roof job, we wanted to be competitive, and we wanted to do a good job. And that's it. And a lot of contractors, I see are exactly like that. And even if they would recommend a public adjuster, they'll walk away from it. They'll say, hey, if I get the job down the road, if they call me back when this thing settles, or whatever happens, I'll come back and revisit it, and then we can deal with that. But other contractors, like you said, with the AOB, thank God they got rid of that in Florida, but other contractors think to themselves, there's a financial incentive here. You've seen it and I've seen it, where they will write a full scope estimate for a roof replacement, and then they will put a one bold sentence in there that says, we'll do it for the insurance, whatever they pay. We want $138,000 for a cement tile roof on, 52 square roof here, right? But, if we can't get that, we'll pay whatever the insurance company pays. Like, what the hell is that all about? And then getting on the roof with an adjuster. I notice over the years recently, the adjusters don't want to get on roofs with contractors anymore. And you hit it on a key point in that sentence. Repair scope for a contractor and coverage scope of damages for a carrier are two separate things. And I think that's where the line can get crossed, right? Because the contractor doesn't understand that there are policy exclusions, and some of that scope that he's presenting doesn't include in the adjustment process. And they get frustrated and they feel like, well, this is a good, reasonable price, and it's insurance and you need to cover all of this, right? And then there are professional scammers out there who just make it a profession to go out there and say, I'm an advocate, we'll wash your deductible, which is against the law. But you see that all the time in mitigation. Oh, don't worry about your deductible, we'll make that go away. And that's a problem because I tell insureds when they sign a contract with us, you owe that deductible. And when I was a desk adjuster or a field adjuster, one of the very common questions from insureds were, when do I send my deductible in? No, 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 you don't send it to the carrier. You've heard that, right? Who do I mail my deductible to, right? Ma'am, that is part, and I think that maybe they should mail it to the carrier. Maybe that should be an obligation because I think that gray area of when you say, ma'am, that's part of your loss and that's your obligation. You're expected to pay that amount of money, whether it's 5,000, 10,000, 2,500 into that loss. And when you ask us for the recoverable depreciation and when we audit the claim at the end, we're going to expect to see that payment made, right? But you know as well as I do, when RD comes into play, that it's a bunch of photographs, it's a quick release, and it's a closure of a claim. And we don't get that detailed into it unless we're talking about a lot of money. So you see contractors crossing the line. 20 years ago, as a contractor, I was there to not help the homeowner. I was there to actually see if I could get that job. I wanted the work. I wanted to fulfill a schedule. I wanted to keep my employees running and going. I wanted to provide a good quality product. I wanted my reputation to grow. And I really didn't care very much about insurance carriers and that process. And from then to today, we have contractors that have a very serious interest in a claim. What happened? Is it the preferred vendor market that opened up somewhere in the 90s and early 2000s that created this, or like how do we get here, you think?
Yeah, we can talk about preferred vendor contract or preferred vendor networks later. That's not the issue. I think the issue is that the storm chasing contractor industry saw that this is an area where a tremendous amount of money is exchanging hands and it can be very profitable. We saw this with the Florida hurricanes and then with Hurricane Ike. And so what we've seen now is that the storm chasing contractor industry has grown. Hell, they have their own conferences, RoofCon, Win the Storm, all
Yeah.
these conferences to basically go learn how to extort as much money as possible out of insurance companies. So the
Well, I've
whole
seen you at the Wind Conference, Steve. I've seen you there. I haven't been there,
well,
but I've seen you on videos there.
I've gone to Win the Storm because they give me a forum to get up on stage in front of 3,000 contractors and tell my story. You
Right.
bet.
Yeah.
And because if I don't go, all they hear is the echo chamber of everybody telling them how to get money out of insurance companies. I'm honored to be invited to all of these events to tell them what the insurance company perspective is as to what they should and should not do. So that industry has taken off. When I speak to insurance companies and I give my "What the hell is going on" presentation, I say, I'll tell you what the hell is going on. The storm chasing advocacy industry, whether it's contractors, public adjusters, or lawyers, has identified the property claims process as an area of tremendous potential wealth. And that's what's happened. And that's okay. People can be represented when necessary. But when you have a market like that, you get a lot of interlopers who are looking into the market for the wrong reason, not to help the insureds, but to really put money in their own pockets. And I'll tell you, coming back to traps for homeowners, one of the other things they need to absolutely look for is the contractor asking me to sign an insurance proceeds contract? You alluded to that earlier. If the contract simply says that the contractor is going to do the work for whatever the insurance company pays, I believe that's a huge red flag. That's going to lead to all kinds of problems. Contractors not going to be happy. They're going to want to supplement and get more. They're going to go to appraisal and get more. They're going to flip it to a lawyer, and the homeowner is going to be in a mess for years, and the insurance companies know it. Homeowners should sign contracts with contractors who give them a retail bid price. Tell your contractor, just tell me what it's going to cost to put this roof on. I will present that to my insurance company. If they don't think it's enough, we can have a discussion about that. But insurance proceeds contracts should be banned in every state.
I agree with you 100%. I don't think that as a contractor, we have to go by guidelines and contracts. Every state will set that, right? As far as your contractual guidelines go. And, unfortunately, maybe they should have prevention clauses in there versus additional clauses they needed to add in there. You're right. This entire industry in Florida, Texas, I think it probably started in Florida, kind of, and then it's kind of just expanded out. I know Texas has become the next Florida, if not, it's overcome Florida in many ways, as far as fraud goes, contractor fraud. We don't see a lot of homeowner fraud out there or attempts to make homeowner fraud. It's usually a miscommunication type of thing or misdocumentation thing. What is the practice of unlicensed public adjusting, and how does a contractor fit into that position accidentally or intentionally?
Yeah, so under the law of pretty much every state, a only a licensed attorney or a licensed public adjuster may assist a homeowner in negotiating an insurance claim. Typically, helping someone with any issue like that is considered the practice of law. But the law has evolved to give public adjusters the right to negotiate insurance claims in most states. And so those are
Not
the only
Louisiana.
people who can handle a claim for you. Contractors try to inject themselves into that process. And if a contractor is negotiating the claim, they're talking about the claim scope and the claim cost of repair. That is what we call UPA, the unauthorized practice of public adjusting. It's also the unauthorized practice of law. You can't do it. Only public adjusters get that little narrow carve out to represent homeowners. So a contractor who is doing it is engaging in UPA and UPL, and it's illegal. It will, at a minimum, render the contractor's contract with the homeowner illegal, void, and unenforceable. So I get calls every week from homeowners who are having to deal with a contractor. They thought they were signing up with somebody helpful, but then they realized later on that the contractor's looking out for their own interests and more so than the homeowners. And they say, but Mr. Badger, I'm stuck in this contract. I say, well, let me look at it. And the contracts mostly say, we will help you to negotiate your claim.
Right.
And as soon as I see that language, I chuckle and I send a letter on behalf of the homeowner to the contractor and I say, your contract's illegal. I double dog dare you to sue this homeowner. And they never do. So as a homeowner, the tip is do not expect or allow your contractor to negotiate your claim. If you need help, you absolutely should go get a licensed public adjuster to help you. I absolutely respect the role of a licensed professional public adjuster in the claims process. I got lots of complaints with some of them, but as a profession, I'm okay with it and I respect that right. But I have zero tolerance for contractors trying to come in and negotiate claims.
My thought on public adjusting is that it should be a very niche thing. It shouldn't be a business model that expands out. It shouldn't be, we shouldn't be mimicking carrier models where we're hiring 50 employees, admin, everything else, sales, estimators, the whole works. I think it's part of an alternative dispute process, right?
Yeah.
If a homeowner has friction or tension with the process and they're not understanding it and they're looking to get somebody to help them with that process or even represent them on that process because they have the right experience, credentials, and competency, that's great. But I don't think that public adjusting as a whole should be something that expands out, grows like AT&T across, across America, right? So the core of this is in part competency, right? And I'm seeing, I don't know about you, Steve, but I see in my industry, on my side of the table, we see a lot of incompetency across the board. That incompetency leads to stupid decision-making skills. And that stupid decision-making skills puts liability and risk on the company for potential fraud, even if it's not intentional. And I see all kinds of horrible things happen there. What can we do to help increase competency in this industry on the public adjuster side and even on the contractor side, right? So you're at Wind, you take the opportunity to go to Wind because you can speak to 3,000 contractors and give them one little thing that may help them not fall into one of their own insurance traps, right?
Yeah.
And that's kind of what that is. What can we do on the same side for public adjusters instead of constantly saying, we got to So in Florida, it's 10% and 20% on a non-emergency. It's 20% on an emergency, state of emergency. It's 20%. Texas probably has similar fee
10%,
structures.
straight 10%.
Is Texas is straight? I'm okay with that, by the way. I really am. Tennessee is 15 and 25, though. So every state kind of has found their own measure of equality there. But the real problem is we got 500 public adjusters with all kinds of people running around knocking on doors, not allowing insurance carriers to even have the opportunity to go through the initial 60-day process of their investigation, right? So kind of give me your whole thought process on what we're talking
I
about
could go
here.
on for an hour on all that, but
I
I'll
know.
drill it down to 2 points. Number
Yep.
one, while I do support the role of the public adjuster, I agree with you that I believe that insured should give the insurance company the opportunity to do the right thing, measure and pay the claim without the involvement of a public adjuster, so that homeowners not giving away 10% of their undisputed claim proceeds. So let the insurance company measure the claim, make the initial payment. If it's not enough and a dispute arises, then absolutely engage a public adjuster at that point to help you quantify the claim. On garden variety roofing claims, things of that nature. Now, there may be a claim that's very complex where a PA is needed from the beginning, but on garden variety roof claims and water damage claims, let the insurance company come out, do the right thing. Do not give away 10% of your proceeds, because that PA fee is coming out of the claim proceeds,
It
or it's
is.
coming out of your own pocket.
Well,
There's
it
no other
is.
source for it. That's
Yeah,
it.
that's
So
true.
that's number one.
The law actually says the PA fees coming out of the insurance proceeds. That's what the law says in Florida. Basically, it says that we can only make a commission on money that we bring in from the insurance company through our efforts, right?
Right, but your commission is based upon the proceeds.
Correct.
It shouldn't come out of the proceeds, because if it does, the insured never has enough money to fix their damage. So
Correct.
if a public adjuster was being intellectually honest with their insureds, they would have to tell them, hey, hire me, but if you want to fix all the damage that I get the insurance company to pay for, you're going to have to pay my 10% out of pocket.
Correct.
That has to be how it works.
Well, math is math, right?
That's right. It's the only way it works. So that is one of my big issues. Give the insurance company the chance to do the right thing first. Your other question is, what about proper training and issues? Very hot topic right now. So let me say, first, on both sides, on my side and the public adjuster side, any adjuster adjusting an insurance claim should be properly trained and capable of doing their job. Of course, it would be dumb for me to say anything different. So adjusters on my side working for my clients should be properly trained and have the experience and knowledge to do their job. That's a given. But let's remember, on my side, if my insurance company sends out a crappy adjuster who doesn't know anything, who's going to get sued? The insurance company. So there is a backdrop. There's someone to sue if an insurance company sends out a crappy adjuster.
Or even
Now,
if it's not a lawsuit, there could be a civil remedy notice, which is
sure,
basically a complaint against the actions of an adjuster.
there's
And
lots of remedies available against an insurance company who
yeah.
sends out a bad adjuster.
But what are the
Now
remedies
let's
for a
go to the
public?
other side. Let's go to the public adjuster side. Some guy is a car radio salesman, car stereo salesman on Tuesday. His buddy says, hey man, I'm making a shit pot of money as a public adjuster. It's really easy to get your license. You ought to do this. And he goes and gets a license. And 2 weeks later, with no experience in construction or insurance, he's got a PA license and he's representing homeowners and insurance claims, and he doesn't know crap. Now, when he screws up or he rips off the homeowner's money or doesn't do it properly, who's there behind him to help the homeowner, protect the homeowner? No one.
Nobody.
So I am very strong in that we need to raise the standards, become a public adjuster. I have been advocating this now very loudly for a couple of years. We do have the attention of the reputable trade organizations for public adjusters. They're looking into this. They're
Like
looking at
who?
well, NAPIA, TAPIA are thinking about it. National Association of PAs, Texas Association of
Okay.
PAs. We are having discussions about what those increased standards look like. Because remember, as a PA, they get to play lawyer without a law license. That's a really neat honor they have.
It is.
And I went to
And I
school
don't
a
look at
really
it
long
that way,
time.
Steve. I actually don't look at it that way. I don't think I get to play lawyer. Um, and the temptation to look or study case law that is very close to an adjustment that you might be making is there, right, for everybody. But I really enjoy the opportunity that I've been given to adjust a claim.
Yeah.
Just adjust a claim. That process is where my specialty lies, right? I rely on construction experience. I have a lot of it. I rely on carrier training. They train me very well. I rely on common sense, good ethics, and basic principles. But at the end of the day, I don't feel that I'm practicing law. I feel that actually I'm more of a peer review to the carrier's adjustment, where I can present what my opinion of how the adjustment should have gone is, and then hopefully we can have a conversation. Unfortunately, public adjusters have a horrible reputation across the board, especially inside the carrier. I know this from working in the carrier. Oh, that PA, I don't even want to deal with him. I'm not going to even look at what he has to say. Let me scroll down. Oh, that number's too big. Let me reject it. And I think there's a lot of opportunities getting missed there. And then going back to what you were saying on the educational side, when I was first an IA, I signed up with Pilot and Crawford and things like that. We were being utilized a lot more than we are now, right? So around 2018, I noticed that the model shift over to desk adjustment, and the IAs were starting to get a lot less authority. Their involvement in the claim adjustment process started to shrink quite a bit, and they actually, by 2020 or so, sort of became just the photographic eyes and ears with some recommendations and a general loss report, right? Is that a good thing?
Yeah. So I'm speaking on behalf of Stephen Badger only now, okay?
Okay.
Not on behalf of any of my clients or any insurance company in general.
Yeah.
I am concerned with the trend away by some insurance companies of using qualified, trained, licensed adjusters as the eyes and ears on the roof or at the loss site to quantify the damage and determine the appropriate repair. And because I have seen some companies move away from that, and I'm an old guy. I've been in the insurance industry 34 years now, 35 years, so I've seen that change, and I believe that it's preferable from my viewpoint to always have a licensed adjuster on scene to document the damage and determine an appropriate scope of repair. Now, that adjuster may not have coverage authority, cannot confirm coverage, but they can quantify the damage and a cost to repair. And then somebody back at the home office who is more experienced with the policy coverage issues, they can apply the policy to that evaluation. I got no problem with that. That's the way it should work. My concern is that I am seeing some carriers not sending out licensed adjusters, sending out ladder assist programs to document the conditions, send that in without a licensed adjuster ever visiting the property to inspect the damage. Stephen Badger, not my clients or anyone, but speaking for myself, that does concern me. I believe it's a legitimate potential problem in my industry. And I'm hoping, in fact, I spoke at a conference on Tuesday this week to a whole bunch of insurers, and this was one of my topics. Guys, I am recommending you not do this. All right, if you're going to send out a ladder assist person to just document conditions, make sure they have a license. Make sure they have an adjuster license. It's not hard to get. So if you're a ladder assist company,
Yeah,
make
well,
sure
you're
all your
kind of
people
polluting
have
the
a.
pool here, right? If everybody goes out and just gets a 620 just to have it in the back pocket to cover their ass, right? We're taking the pool with more incompetency, basically,
Yeah, and I get
possibly.
it. But if the carrier believes that they can conduct a reasonable investigation, remember we began at the
Yeah,
beginning, that's their burden. If
correct.
they can conduct a reasonable investigation by having just a licensed guy out there just take photos and video and send it in and let a desk adjuster evaluate it for damage and coverage, okay. They may get called out. A good lawyer on the other side might disagree, but at least they've complied with the law by having a licensed adjuster out there. And I believe that that is okay. But I am concerned about the use of unlicensed ladder assist programs to make decisions as to the existence of damage.
So I've seen in the recent years, when I was a desk adjuster, we had to have tools. We couldn't leave the desk. We can't physically go as much as I wanted to because I was a field guy for most of my life. We can't physically go there and adjust a claim. We have to get the information to us as best we possibly can. That may involve sending an IA out there, a ladder assist out there, and things like that. But at the end of the day, we have to examine, the evidence in front of us.
Yep.
So I'm not really too concerned about ladder assist as far as them becoming adjusters in the process of doing that job. What I'm concerned about more is their reports and how they present it back to the desk adjuster, right? And I've seen this with air companies that will go out and test for mold. They will write in there, this looks like a constant and repeated seepage that has gone on for more than 30 days in their report. And I've seen that. And it's like, now I have to challenge what makes you an expert on the time? What makes you an expert on how long this has been going on? Did you laboratory test samples of anything? Did you send, the mold out for testing? And can we talk intelligently about that opinion that you just made? See it with engineers as well. And then on my side of the table, and I think this is a problem, right? So a carrier may get an engineer to support a hunch or a decision or a direction they're going in, but they want to really firm that up and make sure that they're making that right decision. Because let's face it, if we're making decisions that cost people thousands and thousands of dollars, I believe every carrier adjuster wants to make the right one. And if they need a higher expert to go out there, like an engineer, to confirm or open up coverage, right, and go the other direction, that's a very valuable process. Where does that process start to fail is it's a reactionary process too. So you get an engineer, I got to get an engineer. You get this, I got to get this, right? How can we go back 10 years? How can we calm this whole ecosystem down, Steve? I mean, this is out of control, right? We're talking about roofers being out of control. We're talking about a breakdown systemically in a lot of different ecosystems here. The homeowners are suffering. Not me, not you, not the carriers, not the CEOs, they're suffering. So what can we do about this? Like,
Well,
let's
there's a
get
whole
down to the
bunch
heart
of,
it.
what came first, chicken and egg issues here that we could debate, but I will tell you the solution that my clients are working on right now more than any other, and that is the use of preferred contractor networks. My clients are now using endorsements that gives them the right to use managed repair
Yeah,
programs or
MRP.
preferred contractor networks. We are invoking the our option provision that's already in our policies, giving us the right to just go out and fix damage. Because what my clients have found is that if we do have a roof that we agree is bad, or water damage that we agree needs to be remediated, instead of having all these fights that you and I have been talking about with the contractor about scope of damage, cost of repair, who's adjusting, PA involvement, lawyer involvement, supplements, appraisal, all that, all I got to do is send a reputable contractor out there to fix the damage. And my policies give my clients that right. So my clients have traditionally wanted to send people money so they can choose their own contractor. That is the insurance company's preference. But because of all the abuses that we're dealing with from all these interlopers who are trying to siphon off that money into their own pocket, my clients are saying, you know what? It's just easier to send out a reputable contractor with instructions to put on a code compliant roof or to fix damage properly. We're always going to do that. That solves all our problems. Sure, once in a while, one's going to go bad and we're going to own the roof and we're going to have to deal with that. But that's okay. We're insurance companies. We can buy insurance to cover our risk when that
I'm
happens
going to
out
do a
of
whole
one in a
segment. I'm
hundred.
going to do a whole future segment on just what you said because as you know, I worked in the preferred vendor program. I know about all the TPAs, Sedgwick, Contractor Connection, Alacrity, and we wrote, to satisfy those assignments quite often, right?
Yeah.
Also, I'm very experienced with Citizens in Florida who started the MRP program back in 2018. We worked very closely with them because they were getting outside contractors to help them with that program and initially started up. What's interesting to me in Florida, I don't know about Texas, but they started the MRP thought process back in probably 2018 or so. I have a lot of friends that are preferred vendor contractors. They're all telling me the same thing right now. Work is dead. Things are slowing down. They have no assignments coming in. And it looks to me like in Florida, insurance carriers are moving away from that. So are you seeing that at all?
I'm not familiar with what's happening specifically in Florida on that issue. What I do know what's happened in Florida is that the number of lawsuits are down dramatically, and the number of claims are down dramatically because they're not out there, the bad actors are not out there soliciting bogus claims so they can
Right.
file lawsuits. So when there's less claims and less lawsuits, then there's less work for contractors because insurance companies often settle those and pay them regardless. So that is happening. In Texas, where I am, where there is no shortage of claims. We keep having hail. Hail's the gift that keeps on giving every year, unlike a hurricane in Florida.
All right, let's
We have
pause on hail real quick because hail is such a controversial claim, right? We got cosmetic damage that possibly is involved. We have fractured matting. We have degranulation. Hail happens a lot. It's like rain. Up in the Northeast where I'm from, we had 4 feet of snow on every roof all winter long, and it did damages to the house, but not everybody had filed an insurance claim when the snow melted away, right? So what would you advise a homeowner that experienced a hailstorm to do in the immediate aftermath of a hailstorm, whether that hail was golf balls or they were just tiny little pebbles, like
Yeah.
BB size?
So the first thing they should do is document the condition around their home. They should take photographs of leaves that are down, of blemishes, little spatter marks. Document the condition of what it looked like immediately after the storm, because there are often issues as to when the hail damage occurred, because it hails here every year, every other year. So insurance companies are going to question whether that damage occurred during their policy period. So a homeowner would be well advised if they just had a hail event to document it, take photographs, and make sure they have the condition. In addition to that, then get a claim filed. Go file a claim and have the company come out and take a look at the roof to see if there's damage. Or everybody knows a roofing contractor. Everybody goes to church or their kids go to school with someone who's a roofing contractor, who's a real brick and mortar contractor who puts on roofs, not one of these win the storm guys who just writes estimates and juices money out of insurance companies. But call your local guy who's a real brick and mortar contractor who puts on roofs and have him come do a free inspection. Say, hey, dude, will you tell me whether I got hail damage or not? And he'll tell you, honestly, most of these local real brick and mortar contractors, and I keep using that word,
Yeah,
a
it's
real
important.
brick and mortar contractor. And they'll tell you whether you have damage. So those two things, three things really: document the condition, I should do it in this order: document the aftermath, get a contractor out, and if he tells you you got damage, submit a claim. It's not hard. And do that without signing up with the door knockers. Don't sign up with the door knocker. Don't sign up with a PA yet. Let the insurance company come and inspect your damage when you're armed with a real roofer who already said you have damage, and try to get your roof taken care of that way. That simple process is how it used to be, right?
Yeah.
That's how it worked. And that's what we got to get back to.
So real brick and mortar contractor, when I was a contractor, I had 2 or 3 trucks, 2 trailers filled with tools. We had 5 guys. That's it. We had no sales teams. We had no door knockers. We had to advertise on Google. We had to advertise on Angie's List or whatever it was. And we had to wait for someone to call us and say, hey, could you come out and give us an estimate? To me, that is a real
Right.
brick and mortar contractor. Another indication of a brick and mortar contractor is they don't write with Exactament,
Yeah,
right?
they might not. Yeah.
I mean, because I'll tell you what, I didn't need to write with an Exactament until I started working with insurance companies. Other than that, we used RS means as guidelines. We used a lot of different techniques, but Exactament consolidated all that with the insurance onset of the insurance industry. And it's a great tool. Don't get me wrong. As a contractor, I really liked using it against people who didn't because it itemized things so nicely and it was so professional, right? But now when I see a contractor pulling out an Exactament estimate, I go, he works with insurance companies in one capacity or another. So that's a red flag to me. What about you?
Yeah, it's a double-edged sword here because I know some insurance companies expect an exactimate estimate. They just expect it. But in my perfect world, what I tell my clients is that you'd prefer to have a real retail bid that has a price from a real contractor. And if that real retail bid is within spitting distance of your internal exactimate estimate, pay it and be done.
Right, right. Close
Exactimate
enough.
is a median. It's an average. It's somewhere in the middle. That means some roofs are going to be more, some are going to be less. So if it's within the range of reason to your exactimate number, Mr. Insurance Company, pay it and be done. Let's finish. Some are going to come in less, some are going to come in more. Pay it, let's be done. I am with you 100%. We should always look for retail bid contractors who are going to give you a real price. That shows they're not a storm chasing, win the storm conference contractor working for insurance proceeds. That's a huge trap for homeowners. And as you said earlier, I'll emphasize it again that if any contractor offers to waive your deductible, run for the hills. They are violating the law of their state, the states that have deductible statutes like we have in Texas that I worked really hard to get passed in 2019. There's no deductible waiving here. But even more importantly, if that contractor asks you to waive your deductible or agrees to waive your deductible, that contractor is implicating you in an insurance fraud scheme because you are not spending the amount of money on the claim that you tell the insurance company you are. And that is a material misrepresentation in support of the claim. That is insurance fraud. So do not ever become complicit in a deductible waiving scheme. Homeowners are committing fraud. If they do that, you got to pay your deductible.
Absolutely, absolutely. Steve, I really enjoyed this time. I know you're an extremely busy guy. Um, I'm going to let you close with any particular thought that you want to, any message, any thought that you really feel that's important in this conversation to get out there, because we're just going to put this out there the way it is.
Yeah, my advice to homeowners is threefold. Number one, be careful who you sign up with. Do not sign up with a contractor or a public adjuster without doing your homework or until it's absolutely necessary. Number two, always give your insurance company the opportunity to do the right thing. All right, work cooperatively with them to measure and resolve your claim. There will come a time to hire a lawyer or a public adjuster later, but give them a chance to do the right thing first. And number three, as we just talked about, pay your deductible. With those three cautionary views, those things in mind, homeowners will have tremendous success in getting most of their claims resolved cooperatively with the insurance company and not being misled by people who are trying to profit themselves from the homeowner's claim.
Excellent, excellent. Steve, thank you very much for being on this show. I know you're in Florida quite a bit. If you're ever in the Tampa area, I would love to have a drink with you and discuss some other things. I'm very active in public adjuster reform, and we're actually trying to present a bill. And we've gotten a lot of traction from some Congress people in Florida, some attorneys on both sides like you.
Good.
I'd be happy to send that over to you. But we're really looking to try to make a difference here because we see the problems that you're seeing as well, and it's on both sides. There's issues, there's failures and issues on both sides. I think on my side, it's systemically a little bit bigger and it's a little bit more out of control because it's so unregulated, right? And the problem with the regulations can be in place, but if they're not enforced, then an SIU investigation goes nowhere. If they're not enforced, a contractor tip goes nowhere. DA doesn't want to deal with it, right? So I think that educating people on exactly what we're talking about is the only thing that we can do to help this systemic problem in the insurance crisis that we're having in Florida and Texas and California and multiple other states. It's crazy.
Yeah, and I appreciate your efforts to improve things in Florida, and I look forward to having a beer with you.
All right, man. Thank you very much, Steve. Talk to you soon.
Thanks. Cheers.